welcome all my esteemed panelists. Welcome to the session. Just a quick context, and I think over the last day and a half, quite a bit would have been covered. That India produced around 150 million tons of steel and has been growing rapidly around 7 to 8%, and has consistently been the second largest steel producer since 2018. What's important is that the construction and infrastructure sector is almost two-thirds of the steel consumption within India, and which talks about that infrastructure, and within infrastructure, transport and mobility is one of the largest segments for the steel industry, and it is the heart of everything for the both the steel industry as well as for the infrastructure sector. So one of the subsectors is, of course, to be looking at urban mobility, and we're looking at public transport systems and the use of steel and stainless steel in these things. And hence, I think having a very diverse panel from civil engineers to rolling stock specialists to O&M leaders, I think we want to talk about not just the use of steel in construction, but also in the equipment and its operation and maintenance, both in terms of the track infrastructure as well as the rolling stock. So I think there's a wide variety where steel and especially stainless steel can be used. Of course, there is competition from other materials and other modes of transportation, but it's interesting to see which the trends are and what should be looked at. And also in terms of the profile, we've got voices from the public sector, the private sector, public agencies and global funding institutions, people who work with the World Bank or are currently advising multilateral banks on there. So I think we have a good comprehensive 360-degree view, and I welcome all my panelists and the audience for this. Um, to kickstart the discussions, I'd like to go to Mr. Amol and start with the first question that urban mobility is fast evolving, and infrastructure is the core of this transition. And so, how do you see the various levels of government, center, state, and the urban local bodies collaborating to implement comprehensive mobility plans? In which case, public transport and urban transport forms a large part of it. And broadly, what's the kind of infrastructure spends and outlay that we're looking at in looking at transport in general, or maybe more specifically in urban transport? And what kind of trends are you seeing in the outlays there, sir?
Thank you. First of all, see, the mobility is directly proportional to the prosperity. So, more mobile the population, prosperity is higher. So, from that perspective, from the center at macro level to the city, urban local bodies, ULBs at the micro level, a lot of organizations are working for improving the mobility of the people. Now, as far as the center is concerned, they formulate the policies like urban transport policy, even the metro policy, even the FAME guidelines, the guidelines for preparation of city mobility plans. So basically, it comes as a the policy level decisions and some initiatives like smart city initiative, the JNNRMU initiative we saw. So basically, these central government organizations, they formulate the policies and promote the guidelines for the implementation of mobility. Then comes state level. Basically, they bridge the gap between the urban local bodies and center. So their job is to promote these policies at various levels, and also the Transport Act, the EV Act. So all those things are getting formed at the state level. But the major initiatives come from the development authorities. So if you look at Mumbai, so MMRD is doing a lot of work. So at MMRD level, they prepare what is called as a city transportation plan, city TS, we call it famously. So it's a continuous process wherein they upgrade the transportation plans, and then the urban local bodies, they form the city mobility plans, which get integrated with the regional plans, regional transportation plans. So if you look at the, if I talk only at the Mumbai level, then outlays are huge. Like if you say Vasai Virar Alibag corridor, some 60,000 crore, then Ring Road of Mumbai, almost 52,000 crores. So it's a huge outlays. And even at ULB level, we were involved in some of the mobility plans. So like, let us say a newly formed corporation like Panvel Municipal Corporation, they have a budget of about 6,000 crores. Then your Kalyan Dombivli urban conglomeration, they have a budget of over 11,000 crores. So like that, the huge outlays are being given to this urban mobility. And if you look at it, then bridge and roads and bridges, they form almost, you can say, 70 to 80% of the total budget. So that is the kind of picture you can get.
Follow-up question on that. So, where do you see when you're designing these plans, what is the guiding framework in terms of supporting, as you mentioned, mobility leads to prosperity, right? And we have a pressure on cities also to make them greener and cleaner. So, what do you see as some of the guiding frameworks in these new CMPs or new systems to push a greater adoption of public transport? And Mumbai anyway has a greater incidence of use of public transport. Classically, the local trains have been used, and so Mumbai suburban, and the metros coming up. But we've seen that in other cities also, where the modal share, like Delhi, etc., was traditionally in the favor of roads, but people have started adopting the metro as the network comes up. But generally, what is it that you're seeing as the trend when these mobility plans are being made towards TODs and towards use of public transport and other such systems or metro system? What is the general trend that you're seeing when people are giving some concepts and guiding principles for the CMPs?
See, the as far as the transportation planners are concerned, they always promote the sustainable transport, pedestrianization, public transport, last mile connectivity. But the trends in the bureaucracy and at the political level, they are different. So anyway, the trend is more and more people are pushing for sustainable transport. So of course the metro is helping. Now the efforts are going for the last mile connectivity, integrating the existing public transport system like buses, IPTs to the metro, so that the metro, the ridership improves. So those are the kind of things. Even the NMT, non-motorized transport, is being promoted. Separate corridors are being created. So these are various efforts, but at the same time, there is a push also for the faster movement. People want to reach faster, and that's where the logistics as well as the transportation corridors are being planned so that one reaches faster. So ring roads for Mumbai, or Vasai Virar Alibag corridor for that matter, or even the MUTP 3, which is promoting the rail corridor. So all those things are actually promoting for the faster travel as well.
Sure. Thank you so much, Amol. Mr. Anil Kumar Agarwal, I'll come to you next. So we've talked about to just picking up from the last point, which Amol mentioned, that people want to get faster there, right, sir? So, given we are moving towards advancement in technology, both in terms of physical mobility technology as well as information technology, use of apps, etc., fintech, open fare collection systems, etc., right? Automatic fare collection and open systems, right? Uh, what can we expect in terms of future outlook in terms of commuter experience and regional connectivity? What are some of the trends that you think we're looking at?
Thanks. I would say that I am working with the RRTS organization for the purpose of O&M. So I would say that this RRTS is now already operating for 55 kilometer out of 80 kilometer, and by the probably September, or it will all 82 kilometers train will start operating. And the kind of growth, the land prices, and the development activity which has been seen around this transit system is really fantastic. And this whole transportation, the concept of, see, earlier we have for the major city metros, and for the long distance we used to have the Indian Railway trains, which are still probably running at a slow pace, and there is a huge demand to increase the speed. But this concept of RRTS basically for the purpose of developing the satellite city near the major city. Like there are three corridors which may be coming up out of one, Delhi Meerut, then Delhi Karnal, and Delhi Alwar. And they, now we reach from Meerut to Delhi 82 kilometers with 15 major halt in 58 minutes of time. So it is a huge boost which is coming for the local public, and whatever has been projected the public transport percentage which is there, 37% at present, considering the bus and the rail traffic. Now the Indian Railway trains are also running between these two cities, and now that public shift will be almost to the 65 to 67%. So commuter experience is going to be phenomenal, I would say. And the best part in this, what is there in the development of this RRTS is the implementation of lot of new technology. There is a lot of interoperability. Even if for the new, say, the signaling system here is of Elstorm. In the new tender, suppose it is taken by the Siemens or some other competitive bidding, some other person takes it. But the system is designed first time in our country like that. Of course, running in the European countries. It is the ETCS level 2 system in which train from one vendor can run into the other system. So that is the interoperability part which is going to be achieved. And there we are also achieving many first in the world in this very, I am really very proud to say that there are many first in global level also such things have not happened like ETCS level 2 signaling is completely integrated with the platform screen door. So unless the platform train door, platform screen door and ETS level 2 is fully integrated, if any door is closed or open, then signal will remain red, and and too much level, highest level of safety. It was there in CBTC system earlier, but first time with ETCS level 2, this has been achieved in the RRTS. Of course, that secondly, with ETCS, nowhere in the world the ATO automatic train operation is there. So that Alstom is going to implement that also. Already trials have happened. It will come somewhere in September. So, as you were asking regarding the customer experience and whatever feedback we have, customers are really so happy with this system. And first of all, it is very fast. Secondly, there are a lot of uh, connectivity with the different mode of transport. So many bus stops. We are even running, connecting the metro station. We are running a flyover with the travelators at 2 or 3 locations. It will be there. Then we also trying to run some small buses for feeding the people, and a huge parking facility has been created. So, like if we go to Meerut South, now trains are already operating. More than 300 cars will be parked in the morning, and all people will come from Meerut city to Meerut South, and then they go to Delhi with our train. In the evening, they come back and they pick up back. So it is a, I think, life-changing experience for those area. And another first which is going to be there in our country is that on the same track we will also be running the metro trains
Right,
in
sir.
the Meerut city. So these are the many new innovations are happening, and we are part of operation and maintenance, and we are really learning a lot with this new technology. And it is really customers are really very happy.
Sure. Thank you. I think what my takeaway from that is that uh, all these systems are designed to improve the commuter's travel experience, safety, and as you said, interoperability. Sorry. Um, and a lot of it is coming from technologies developed uh, by vendors, suppliers, planners, etc. Right? Some of it coming from the private sector, innovation and technology as well. So thank you so much for those insights, Anil. And I'll come to Dr. Rajdeep. That just to take a step forward, where do you see the private sector coming in contributing to this shift towards urban and public transport systems? Like you said, that Alstom is designing something, some trials are underway. The O&M for the RRTS is with the private sector in a public-private partnership framework, right? So where do you see the private sector bringing in safer, cleaner, faster areas, and how are they contributing to the shift towards urban transportation?
Thank you very much for the. I would first I would convey my sincere thanks to all of the individuals and the expert panelists here, and special thanks to you for this special occasion. It's my privilege, and thank you so much. Going ahead with your question, I think what you have asked is a very, very legitimate question when it comes to the subject of sustainability. Now, the sustainability of because see, I'm a person who is basically from projects. Now, when we talk about freights, rails, metros, RRTS, and everything, at the end of the day, the bottom line remains the infrastructure. I mean, the kind of quality of the infrastructure what we are providing. I mean, it's something like you you buy a Porsche and then you have a road full with the potholes. So uh, the everything gets spoiled. So I think the part of sustainable infrastructure and the quality of infrastructure is very, very important here. Coming back to the specific question of private players turning into this concept of providing the sustainability, including the shift of technology and the demand, which is now a global demand of creating a infrastructure which is producing minimum possible carbon footprints. Basically, what I see here is there are four major steps which we as a private players, especially in the construction segment, have taken. The first and the foremost is the initiative taken by Government of India, and I would really appreciate the kind of models of projects which they have adopted recently in the last 15, 20, or 25 years. The hybrid annuity model, the EPC model, these are all the part of the public-private partnerships. Now, when we talk about the public-private partnership, the idea is only to indulge more and more private players so that the idea of sustainability and idea of growth can be spreaded equally to the mass. That was the first idea. That is what we have to understand. Second thing, what I feel here is the most important part when the players who are going to be the eminent players in PPP business, they have to have a very strong expertise, not only in the civil field, but in the other interface subjects also. In the subject of interface for rolling stocks, let it be track, let it be signaling or anything else, because when we talk about a EPC contract, most of these EPC contract are somewhere or the other are connected to all these expert areas. So this brings the private players to a corner where he has to be totally competent in all the areas where the integration has to be perfect. Third most important thing the private players nowadays achieving and adopting is the sustainability of the structure in terms of the environmental challenges. That is, decades ago, we used to talk about carbon footprint. So, carbon footprint was basically nothing but a specific and a generic statement. So, nowadays, when we talk about carbon footprint, it is not only the carbon footprint, it is the carbon accounting as well. So, the private players are in a position where the challenge of maintaining their carbon accounting and the ledger is equally important. So these are the second challenges and the innovations the private players are having nowadays. Fourth and the foremost important thing for the private players to see, for a private player, it is the sustainability as well as the business at the end of the day and the profitability, because he also has to survive. When we talk about this sustainability and the self-existence, I was going through a lot of articles in the last few days regarding stainless steel, and one of the biggest segment of consumptions and the consumer of stainless steel is the construction industry, especially in the infrastructure area. Government of India, Ministry of Road Transport and Highway, wide its circular dated 22nd of January 2021, has given a very good guidelines for adoption of stainless steel rebars for the construction activities for the structures which are within a perimeter or within a range of 15 meters from any of the sea or creek in the saline conditions. This is something which is going to be a something which is definitely going to make these infrastructure projects sustainable, because most of these projects, when we talk about the lifespan, they are not less than 100 years. We are talking about a structure which has to be there after 100 years also. I mean, our generations from today, the third or the fourth generation, they will be the users of those infrastructures. So it becomes our social and the moral responsibility to give them with something which has a corporeal effect even after 80 years or 90 years or 100 years. So here the importance of, I think, the stainless steel becomes very, very important. uh, i- taking a deep dive into the subject will have a lot of aspects to discuss, but I think we have a shortage of time here, and we should not elaborate. But yes, as you rightly asked, the importance of the private players in adoption and going into this deep diving of this expertise of integration, sustainability, and everything is quite important. And I think most of our Indian construction companies are not those 30 or 40-year-old companies with those old phenomena, but rather we have fresh phenomena and the fresh concepts to meet with the global challenges and to meet with the global business requirements.
Just about 1 minute, I want to talk about this subject private. You asked about the private player role. So I would just take the example of metro. Like right now, earlier we used to have only one private operator, Keolis, who's doing Hyderabad Metro O&M fully, and all the records are available. Their O&M cost is, I think, 50 to 60% of what the government organization spends. So they not only bring the economy into the operation, because we all know that all metros are running in loss because of huge infrastructure expenditure. Then we are the second private operator. We have got this contract in RRTS. Now already Mumbai Line 3 and the Chennai recently is also awarded to DMRC, has also come into this O&M business. And second example from my project is this provision of solar panel, all the stations and so many empty places with huge potentials, and that is based on the built and operate model. So the complete investment is done by the private person, and he will be paid as per whatever actual electricity he generates every month. So these are the areas where he said talked about sustainability. So this is how the private players are playing role in the metro systems.
Thank you so much, Rajdeep and Anil. Um, Dr. Loya, I shift tracks to literally shifting tracks and gears to you, given your long experience with the government planning, etc. So two questions which are there, and one is on financing, funding, and institutional structures, and second is the use of these advanced materials, right? Uh, Typically what we've seen, let's say in solar energy also, initially the rates were very high, and then over a period of time as scale came in, the costs came down and they kind of matched coal prices. So here also we're seeing the use of advanced materials, corrosion free stainless steel, other technologies coming in, and the private sector, other innovations are looking at how to reduce the cost, but they will take some time before they scale up and market forces allow to scale become cheaper. Generally we see that some of these technologies, because they're nascent or the scale is that they're expensive upfront, but when you look at a life cycle cost, and especially if you look at it including the sustainability angle, both from a sustenance as well as a green, they may be cheaper over the, or maybe more cost effective of the long term, right sir? So where do you see what could be done in terms of a planning and infrastructure planning frameworks, and the way we kind of design and appraise our projects, sir, which can help the introduction of these technologies and induction of these technologies, and how can the different institutions come together, or some is a broader level framework or a conceptual question, so that I thought I'll ask for you.
Thank you. I think you are asking the issues, which is the root cause why this is not being done. When it makes all the common sense, I would say economic sense, environmental sense. We are sitting on the word environment day to day. So, from all angles, it makes sense, yet it is not executed. Well, the root lies in, unfortunately, if you, because the session is on urban mobility, so let me talk about urban mobility. Urban transport is a constitutional and institutional orphan in one statement, and it's a very strong statement. And I had been making this statement even before the cabinet secretary and principal secretary to prime minister. It is nowhere mentioned in the entire constitution whose responsibility is urban transport. It is mode-wise distribution between various levels of government, between various departments, etc. And hence there is no institution. So essentially, it is like an abandoned child. So the the solution lies from abandoned to being adopted. So unless until it is adopted, So long-term solution will not come. And since it is abundant child, the approach often is ad hoc. So if the ad hoc approach is there, you do not have anybody having a long-term vision. Once they do not have a long-term vision, what they will do, because any change, government is a big driver for the entire change. When I was handling urban transport, right from 2006, I was pushing metros adopt LED, and it was a huge challenge to even get metros to adopt LEDs. And when Government of India at PM level started pushing LEDs, and entire cost of LED and economics, everything went down, and you can see how much of energy country saved and how much of energy essentially was available. Same is the case with any sustainable material also. It requires a long-term thinking, funding, financing, and also long-term planning. Right from the tender specifications, when I was heading this Indian Railway Stations Development Corporation, Ministry of Steel has issued guidelines in 2021. But much before that, we adopted that for the stations, and especially in Mumbai area, let us have stainless steel as the reinforcement. Because whatever structure we are making, we have to think of 120 years.
Yeah.
We constructed a five-star hotel on top of tracks, Gandhinagar, which was first in the country.
Right.
So
sir.
again, 120 years. So if you take life cycle cost, yes, stainless steel, because it is not only corrosion proof, but also strength wise. So the entire dimensions, etc., everything you have to take the advantage.
Strength to weight ratio and other things also work in that favor as well.
That's true.
Correct.
So when we were designing a metro, so we said, and stations, green building rating, so that it comes in the thinking, planning right at the beginning. And when all these things are made institutional,
Yes, sir.
then the implementation happens. In Bangalore, if you take, roads could not be constructed well. Why? Because the tender specifications were poor.
Right, sir.
So if you take Delhi Metro, for example, the construction itself, the way the construction, pre-Delhi Metro construction, which when it started in Delhi, and post-Delhi Metro construction, entire country, it set a bar how the construction site needs to be managed. So I would say government has a huge role. Long-term vision institutions have a huge role. A well-integrated, interconnected thinking and ownership has a huge role. And laying down specifications which can be woven into the tender specification rather than leaving it to be managed. What should be output should also be paid for. If it is measured and paid for, then it will happen. If it is not measured and paid for, that is how in Delhi Metro, all tenders, it was there. So I think these are various aspects which need to be taken into account so as to have the promoted use of the sustainable material so that we can actually work towards the sustainable environment.
Thank you so much, Dr. Luyan, for with that frank thing. And I just wrote it down. They were the three A's: abandoned, adopted, and ad hoc. The three A's, like a AAA battery. If you adjust this, that the things will move. Otherwise, you might have a problem. I'll return to you, sir, on some other aspects of this, and I'll move to Harsh. Uh, thank you so much, Harsh, for joining us today. Right. Um, so we've talked about the private sector. We've talked about the demand for urban transport. So talked about the institutional frameworks and what needs to be done. Right. What are some of the specific advancements that you're seeing, and how do you see, as we talked about, the life cycle cost, especially in an Indian context? And why bringing the Indian context is also because our cities are crowded, and most of our largest cities are also old cities with very high density of population, where these metros are being constructed, any public transport. Hence, they're going underground or elevated, and which increases the cost and the operational complexity. We're also a very tropical country, unlike the European countries, so where you require air conditioning and continuous airflow to manage these things, and the volumes, especially the PPHD, is very high once adoption really picks up, right? So within the Indian context, the use of various advanced materials, where are some of the trends that you're seeing in the train design, rolling stock, advancements in an Indian context, and how do you see this influencing the life cost estimation for a country like India versus maybe some other metros like Dubai Metro or European, which have a very different operating and economic standard as well?
Thank you, Samir, for asking this question. I think there are two aspects you are trying to ask. One is on the transportation structure in India and how the technology has improved in India and how it is comparing that with internationally. How it compares internationally. So let me make a comparison of the international first. Uh, I will be very specific here on the rolling stock side. Rolling stock here in India, whether it is with the metros or with Indian Railways, it is all along we are using the stainless steel or any other steel material, except I think two areas, two metros. One is Pune Metro, or second is a monorail, where we have gone to aluminium. And there are specific reasons behind it. One is the initial cost, which we call it as the capex cost, and second is the operational cost. When I speak about the capex cost, there is always a comparison which is done between stainless steel and aluminum. And availability of aluminum for these metro cars is a challenge in India because these type of extrusions are not available. And today, the aluminum industry in India have not invested that much to create that kind of a structure. So what happens is that in spite of the advantage the aluminum has because of the weight, where we can reduce the overall weight of the car by almost 20-25%, and the impact of this 25% reduction in the weight is resulting in about 7% reduction in the energy, and also uh, from the perspective of the movement acceleration movement which is required for the metro, this can get a lot of advantage to that. But unfortunately, this kind of aluminum is not available in India. So, what is happening internationally? If I talk about Americas, it is almost 80% stainless steel is used. Stainless steel in one form or the other. If I go to China, it is almost 90% aluminum is being used. If I go to Spain in Europe, it is almost 100% aluminum is being used in the rolling stock. If I talk about other European countries, it is almost 70 to 80% aluminum is being used. In India, it is 95% stainless steel is being used. And what are the reasons behind it? One is that the speed level at which we are working in India, especially in railways, we are never going beyond 100 kmph average speed. In all our railway system, average speed is between 55 to 85, depending on the kind of speed we are having. Even Vande Bharat today, which we have introduced, again is stainless steel, is below 100 kmph. Similarly, metros, we are running at about 70, 60. This is a maximum speed or average speed is about 35 kilometers. At this level, the cost involved in creating that aluminum type of coach is almost 25% costlier. From a reparational point of view, as I said, we save on 7% energy, but the maintenance cost of aluminum goes up. So when I see the life cycle cost, in the life cycle cost, stainless steel still have an edge over the aluminum for about 35 to 40-year life of the vehicle. But when you go to speed higher than 160 kmph, internationally everybody has shifted to aluminum because there you are looking at a lighter weight and the energy efficiency that you are able to achieve is more than 7% there. You also mentioned about the air conditioning system. I have been involved in the metro for almost 20-25 years. I have seen these things have evolved in India. The energy efficient system of HVAC, the major consuming power in the metro coaches, that has come down almost by 60%. I am repeating the word 60% last 20 years. So, which is only because of technology. So, this kind of advancement also has taken place. Mr. Agarwal mentioned about the ETCS level 2. What we have seen in the metros also, the signaling system that has come. Initially, we were able to run the trains with a headway of almost 3 minutes to 4 minutes. With the technology of signaling which has come, we can able to run that train at a headway of 1 minute. So you can imagine that the peak time, if you are able to get the commuter's train available in 1 hour, 1 minute time, what benefit it will get. But one thing which is merely concerning for me is that today, in all the tier 1 cities, during the peak time, we have a heavy requirement of traffic where PPSD level goes up to 45 to 50,000. But non-peak time, it is only 15,000 to 20,000. And if I go to tier 2 cities, it never crosses even 20,000 during the peak time. So heavy metro, which has been adopted in India today, is not the solution for all the metros. It can be useful for Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, or Chennai, but this will not be useful for cities like Jaipur, Nagpur, other places. You require a lighter version. Either we go with the light metros or we go with a different technology which has LRV technologies, which are much suited for these kind of requirements. These things have not started in India. From the industry point of view, everybody is recommending to the government authorities for the tier 2 cities, there is no point in creating a heavy metro structure with a 16 ton, 17 ton axle load. We can always reduce the cost, overall cost of the project by going with the axle load of 13 ton, where we are able to reduce the project cost by almost 30%. So these are also technological evolution which has taken place worldwide. Unfortunately, what happens in Allawar is that we don't have a road space available. We don't have a road discipline like we have internationally. You have seen in Calcutta Metro, Calcutta tram was running, but it is almost unsuccessful. But whereas internationally, unless there is discipline in the public, the success of LRV is not there. So there were recommendation which was given that why don't we have elevated LRV system? Still, we are able to reduce the cost. Overall project cost comes down. So these are the advancements which are taking place internationally, which are still to be adopted in India.
So, so Harsh, that's a very interesting point you brought up about the cost of these metros and going towards lighter systems, right? And so I probably shift back to Rajdeep and Anil. What role do you see stainless steel, right? And interesting to see that we're more into stainless steel than aluminium, right? So, what role do you see stainless steel playing in these areas, both in all aspects of a metro or urban, like rolling stock, the rails, signal link, station design, etc., construction? Where do you see the advantage of stainless steel vis-a-vis aluminium that you see? And do you see any shift happening possibly for some of these lighter rail systems as well? Do you see any other new materials coming in as well?
As he already explained, that there is definitely an advantage of going to aluminum over from the stainless steel. But stainless steel is very much advantageous than the conventional MS sheet which we are using for manufacturing earlier coaches. But now we have switched over to the stainless steel. So the most biggest advantage which I see, particularly in metro, when I compare with the Indian Railway, metro coaches made of stainless steel, there is no paint required, external paint. It have worked, having worked on Indian Railway, that too in mechanical department, the painting of coaches has been a very difficult. I think if we calculate the life cycle cost, probably going with stainless steel without paint is cheaper than going for the MS steel with the painted surface. And what he said recently, I also saw a system that's called LRT, light rail transport system. That's also, I think, is coming up in India in big way. Two, three states have already floated tender for that. But why? What I saw in Singapore, they have also constructed the running it on the elevated systems like the metro system. But it is definitely much cheaper and much easier. And during construction, I think still there is a lot of reluctancy to go in for, as Loya sir have said, that they decided for metro for Mumbai area they were going to use stainless steel bars for reinforcement, but we don't see a natural shift as of now. But in our metro RRTS particularly, a lot of post like signal post, other things, all railings, escalators, and even this platform is screen door. Everything is with the stainless steel. The most biggest advantage is the maintenance is very easy and you can clean it very nice and it looks very nice. But
Sure.
with aluminium, I think that thing is missing. You require much more maintenance as compared to stainless steel.
I'll come back to that, sir. Dr. Rajdeep, you want to, from a project's perspective, right? As you mentioned, there's some reluctance to look at stainless steel in construction or civil structures. Any reasons which are there, or what could the industry look at, or any other innovation can do in stainless steels? Because stainless steel is a wide variety. You know, the way you change the alloy composition of it. Is there some aspect of it that they could potentially change to look at a greater adoption of that in projects as well on the civil side, sir?
Uh, there is a need to go to step back 2 or 3 steps, and there is a need to pick a few points which are very, very nicely highlighted by Mr. Agrawal and Mr. Dhingra also. That is the cost aspect. Now, before we go further, I would, as a project's scenario, we have to understand one thing, that as on today, India is almost having 1,000 kilometers of operational metro lines. Sir, if I'm not wrong, almost 1,800, 1,000 kilometer of operational, and around 200 kilometer is already approved, and almost 800 to 900 kilometer is proposed. So in totality, we are talking about a network which is going to have at least 2,000 running meters of 2,000 kilometers of infrastructure in the next coming 10 to 12 years. Uh, Keeping this figure aside, let's come to a small micro level. When we talk about the projects, typically one of the metro projects, when we talk about the elevated projects, I'm not touching the underground, because underground will not make much difference in the design point of view. Uh, See, basically what is happening is that a typical metro project of 1 kilometer will take almost 1,500 cubic meter of concrete, and almost 2,005, 15,000 cubic meter of concrete, and almost around 2,500 tons of TMT steel it takes. When we talk about stainless steel, now, hypothetically, I imagine that stainless steel by weight ratio, it is almost 9 to 10% lighter than the mild steel. One of my very good friend, he is from the design field of area, and we were having a very nice discussion a couple of days back. So I just asked him that, look, if I reduce your weight, your dead weight and the live load, which are the prime criteria for a structural designer to design the structure, what is that you're going to have? So he simply said that, look, if you reduce it by 9 to 10%, definitely I will be able to save my quantities by 7 to 8%. It goes neck to neck almost. So we are talking about saving almost almost 150 cubic meter of concrete and almost 250 tons of steel. Monetary point of view, it becomes around 3.5 to 4 CR. Okay. So per kilometer, we are talking about a savings of 3.5 to 4 CR. Taking it back for another 1,000 kilometers, which is upcoming in the next couple of years, you can imagine the kind of amount we have. Why I'm getting into this is that the cost point of view, when it was discussed, we have to understand this huge savings which is going to us. That is the number one we have to understand. Someone has to completely do the analysis. That is number one. Initially, when we were discussing about the advantages of stainless steel, so this is one of the advantage. Now, when we talk about using, and is there any apprehensions or any reservations for adoption of complete steel? uh, let me tell you, today, if you see the Indian construction sector, every year, their steel requirement is around 120 to 130 million tons. Million tons. And domestically, we are producing around 6 to 7 million tons of stainless steel. And from China, I think we are importing around 2 to 3 million tons. Total put together, our total capacity of supply of stainless steel is roughly, say, around 9 to 10 million tons. This is the per year figure. Now, let's compare here. We are talking about a sector which is eating up 120 to 130 million tons of steel per year.
Right.
And we are at 9 to 10 million tons.
Hmm.
Hypothetically, I assume that even 1/4 of the construction sector has been converted into the stainless steel
So the
category.
production needs to come to almost 30 million tons as per
So,
today's standards.
so you need
Correct.
to have 30 million tons in your hand, whereas you are having at a figure of 9 to 10 tons only. So you are at 30%.
Right.
Now, the most important question here, which I have understood in couple of last years of 29, 30 years of survival in Indian construction industry, is that there is as on today, there is a complete hostile situation in terms of confidence between the user and the supplier.
Okay.
I am the user, you are the supplier. You are not able to give me a confidence that, look, boss, I will give you your quantity.
Right.
I am the user. I am afraid that today, if I adopt and start my project with stainless
You will
steel,
not have sufficient
and
material.
tomorrow, if I don't have the steel. So I think this is the major conflict and the major hostile situation in terms of confidence,
Right.
which the seller and buyer has to give mutually. It is not only the buyer who can say the seller that can you produce it. Even the seller has to tell whether you will buy it. If I produce 30 million ton, I am not going to sit at home with this 30 million ton. You have to take it,
Noted,
you know.
sir.
So this is something which is a very important question as on today. And what Dr. Loya has very rightly he said, that it's an institutional and constitutional orphan. So these are the questions, where someone has to walk in and someone has to do some good, some workings, output of which becomes corporeal. It has to
Understood,
be
sir.
visible. So
So,
I'll just end with one more
please,
thing.
please.
So this is what we have to address, and I really appreciate expositions and conventions and dialectical of this type is really going to help this sector, because this is the forum wherein you are trying to bring together the differences and the distances and the hostile situations in between the user and the buyer. So hats off to you and the entire team for this kind of workshops. So I think that yes, in the days to come, lot of improvements will be there. People will be more adaptive. Yes, in terms of cost, both have to be compensated. The contractor has to be compensated. The government has to take some initiatives, and the
Noted.
production has to come up.
Correct. And I think this is one of the aspects mentioned about the solar manufacturing, right? That we didn't have enough panels. So cost was high. But once the supply chain and the supplies factors come in, then economies of scale kick in. And Dr. Louis, I think you've picked up the mic and you have something to add. And probably I'll take that space to ask you the question as well. Before coming to you, Amol, towards the end, is what could the industry, you talk about what government needs to do, right? And it will require a regulatory policy change and alignment. What do you think that the private sector could do? Like you said, the suppliers also have to do, which can induce the government that yes, the government is willing to come with a policy, but if we don't have the requisite ecosystem to do this, so what is it that the private sector should take an initiative of, and the industry should come together to popularize or evangelize the use of stainless steel or any other such sustainable materials and technologies, sir? Because everything, like you said, it's a public-private partnership, is not just in projects, but in bringing change. So it's not just the government's responsibility; they may take the first step, but the private sector also has to take like 2 steps forward, sir. So your thoughts on that, sir?
So I think the important dimensions of driving a change is to have a collected thinking at the industry level and collected thinking also at the government level. Mr. Rajiv mentioned the lack of confidence. If it is individual project person to industry person, yes, there will be a lot of lack of, I would say, confidence. And having handled those kinds of situation, but what I have seen that once government can give its projected thinking that this is the direction in which we are moving and we want to move, and derives this out of consultation with the private body, which has to be through a collected thinking, which is through the association, because association can bring all the private players together and can through all these conferences and exhibitions that you have, and the collected wisdom through the discussion dialogue that is there is projected to the government. So this kind of interface between industry and government is very important in driving the policy change, and industry to be aware of what is the policy change so that they can drive their manufacturing, etc., align it. So what I have also seen, having been at the government, there were various kind of things when we were thinking of the change in the entire bus industry, and we framed urban bus specification for the first time in the history of the country. I was challenged by even the cabinet secretary and the planning secretary that, Mr. Loya, have you gone mad? The industry is burning. It was 2009, and you are talking of these specification to be enforced. I said, sir, please give me 6 months. Either in 6 months we will change, else I will do whatever you say. And again, thanks to the industry, because we made very clear thinking aware to the entire industry, entire to the bus industry, that this is the direction which we should move on. This is what we have framed the specification in consultation with you for 2 years. And within 6 months, what was considered impossible, the industry turned around and delivered. Today, everybody talks of UBS, Urban Bus Specification, version 1 and 2. So they have come into play. So what I'm saying is that This kind of dialogues are important. This kind of collected thinking to be projected to the government, and the government to interact with the industry and give them a thinking which is long term. Then the industry can make change. Ad hoc, they will not
Yes,
make the change.
correct, sir. And on that note, I come back to Harsh. I've got the technical question which I'll come to, but before that, on this, uh, the industries can't transition overnight. The production side, supply chains. If they do, then there'll be a spike of demand, and prices will shoot up and make projects or any such things, non-competitive. What could and the scale which Dr. Radip talked about, that even if 25% of the construction is 30 million tons, and suppose that is the demand for urban transport, or let's say metro systems of the next in any given year, right? We are at 6 to 7 million tons, which is distributed across uses, right? What could be a potential roadmap or a transitionary phase? Should be the principles for this transitionary phase that you think government, public, and vendors should look at to bring this change about, from your perspective?
See, there are two things which are involved here. Specifically on the metro side, though we are all talking about 1,000 kilometers in operation and 800 is there, but if you see the average which is done in the last 6 7 years and what is projected for the next 7 years, I'm still finding that the average construction is still going to maintain at 70 to 80 kilometers or 100 kilometers. I don't see a double digit growth in the metro connectivity in the next 10 years, in spite of the fact that huge demand is there. But connectivity from the perspective of industry, we are still able to see the kind of capacity which is required. We are in a overcapacity situation as far as industry is concerned. I will give you a very good example here. Today, we require about 600 to 700 coaches per year, whether it is metro or RRTS, and the capacity in India is about 1,000 coaches. So we are in overcapacity, and I don't see this going up in the next 7 to 8 years. In spite of the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, that we are thinking that why not we have a light rail vehicles here. That is the first thing. But if I go on the railway side, the coach production, railway coach production has gone up over the last 3 4 years. Vande Bharat have been introduced. But there again, if you find that it is only improvement in the production efficiency which has happened there in the railway industry, rail coach factories. So we were making earlier 6,000 coaches. Today we are making 8,000 coaches. And if you see the projection, they are thinking of going up to 10,000 coaches in next 5 years' time. So again, from the industry point of view, we are able to see that what Indian railways are going to make in the next 5 years' time. So again, as far as the capex requirement for creating new material or new factories, they are still on the slower side. In spite of we are saying that economic growth is taking place in India, from the railway segment, in spite of huge investment which has taken place, from industry point of view, industry has already invested in that. So I'm able to see in the next 10 years, no new investment is likely to come in the railway side. So these are the two areas which are critical. As for the private sector is concerned, that is why we are more keen to bringing newer technologies here. So by getting in the, like, give you an example of stainless steel. Stainless steel, which was there 10 years back on the metro coaches, and stainless steel, which is being used now, there is always almost 7 to 8% reduction in there on the weight side. So better stainless steel technology has come. Because of that, the prices, overall price of the product, the metro coach, which was sold at about 8 to 9 crores 7 years back, today again is being sold at 8 to 9 crores. So these are the advantage which has come because of the new material, new product which have been developed at a more competitive price. So industry is geared up for that.
Thanks, Harsh. So, and I'll ask one last question from Akar, then open up to the audience. Sorry, Amol. Where do you see the use, like we've talked about? So, given that we've got cost challenges, you got the same capacity challenges, right? Where do you think are the other aspects where you see urban transport systems championing the use of new technologies, new materials, etc.? And do you see that awareness and that appreciation there, even at the local governments, right? So, as Dr. Sanjeev mentioned, you've got central governments, state governments, local governments, which get involved in developing an urban transport system. So, where do you see the awareness? What kind of further things could be done for education or the adoption of advanced materials or new materials in this thing, and the readiness for change?
See, first of all, I feel there has to be a discrimination when we use stainless steel, because we saw the supply demand gap. At the same time, every city character is different. So when we look at Mumbai or a very congested city, various modes of transport are fighting against each other. So when it comes to stainless steel or adopting new technology, what comes to my mind is, see, metro actually defining the central verge. Specifically, it is coming into the central verge. My central verge is getting defined. They are encroaching upon the footpaths, the portals, the piers are coming onto the footpath. But if we are able to reduce the sizes of some of the members, these spaces will be made use for the people at large. At the same time, the metro stations occupy huge space on the road, and it should not become a eyesore kind of a structure. So if the stainless steel is able to bring some kind of a reduction, some kind of a aesthetics, beauty into the structures, it's going to help. As far as new technology is concerned, now we are talking about PRTS in BKC. It is come along with the metro. So you can imagine the type of congestion which is going to come for the pedestrians, or even for the, because a lot of piers will come along with the metro. PRTS piers will come. So unless and until we economize on these sizes of the members, piers, the girders, uh, I think the livability of the city or the livability of the pedestrian movement is going to be very difficult. Another point which comes to my mind is, uh, see, the specifications which you use for the roads in Delhi versus roads in Mumbai. We are in a coastal area, so why not we emphasize on use of stainless steel for bridges in coastal area? So that is going to help the livability or the longevity of the structure. See, today we are unable to imagine what is 100-year further. But if you get onto the metro, New York metro, you will find that this was constructed in 1900. So that is what going to happen with our metros also in future. So we have to keep that in mind. That this metro, underground metro, above ground metro, is going to survive for next 100 years, and that type of construction, that kind of material has to be used. So the technology, when we talk about, actually these are some of the things which should come into the part of the specifications. And I feel while formulating the specifications, the discrimination has to be used. It cannot be entire country one specification. So those kind of things has to be brought into our implementation strategies.
I belong to academic institute, uh, and here I am representing the general public. First of all, very distinguished panel, and you are the think tank. You have been advisor to the government of India. I will just talk about materials. I heard that you are propagating use of stainless steel or aluminum alloys. Why can't you think of using composites? For example, now you see Boeing. It was using 15% composite earlier. Now it is using more than 50%. Fuselage, it was made in aluminum. Now everything has changed. Even now, the buses for tomorrow are not going to run on petrol or diesel, but they are going to use some liquid hydrogen, for which, in any case, you are going to have, composite material, carbon composite or so. So instead of just adopting one technology there, and now not looking into what is going to be 10 years ahead of that, I am not very sure. Railway uses more than 250 types of materials. You have got organizations, research development and RDSO, and it's a big thing. I don't think individually we are capable of solving any problem. I mean, like ISRO, for example, you see, they
Sir,
have,
could you just state your question to the panelists in the interest of
so
time, sir,
my
please?
question is that first question is, why don't you use composites for
Sure.
because you are talking of higher specific
Noted, sir. Correct, sir.
stiffness. Second thing is, I mean, even for fuel consumption, you are talking of energy reduction. So why don't you use this liquid hydrogen? And for that also, you can have composite materials. So go to shift to the composite material itself.
Noted, sir.
You can go to aircraft, Boeing 777. Why can't you use it in railways?
Sure, sir. I'll.
And second thing I would like to point out, we are talking about metros and all those things. we are, as a general public, we read newspaper reports, why can't you get materials, stainless steel, the same quality? Because quality and reliability is very important. Your design philosophy is completely old philosophy. Your raw materials are, not up to the mark. Whatever you are using for making stainless steel, and you are talking of, sustainability and things like that. Don't think that stainless steel is not going to corrode if we are using in coastal area. Pitting corrosion may come into the fact. Hydrogen embrittlement may be a issue. So these are things, you should think holistically. I mean,
Noted, sir.
I'm a small mouth to talk about this.
No, thank you so much. So yes, I think the first question, we will not talk about green hydrogen, sir, because we're focusing on this panel from steel on the track. So maybe we can take traction as a separate. But so just the use of composites, what has been preventing that? I have a certain view on it, but at first want to just hear from
Sir,
engineers.
you rightly said about a composite. In Europe, the work is being done to use composite as a vehicle body material. Chinese have also done it. Chinese have made composite using the fiber as a base material. Uh, Today, the cost is prohibiting the use of composite in the rolling stock side. But I'm sure in the coming days, this thing will improve. You also mentioned about hydrogen. Hydrogen is also being tried in India. The first hydrogen train is going to be commissioned in 2 months' time, which is a demo diesel electrical multi-unit using the hydrogen, converted to hydrogen now. And I'm pretty sure in the coming years, you will find more hydrogen trains running like we are seeing hydrogen cars. So these are technology which is coming in India.
Anybody else wants to compliment or that? I think
I think the second question gentleman asked was regarding the civil engineering structures.
Hmm.
So I would like to confirm here that what you have asked is very, very legitimate. And you see, in the last 10 or 12 years, there is a complete shift of the technology also. And even the codal provisions, now Ministry of Road Transport and Highway and our IRC 12, they are recommending use of stainless steels. But yes, there is a conflict, there is a hostile situation which has already been discussed here, which needs to be sorted out. Otherwise, industry is very, very adaptive. As a private players and the private contractors, everybody is very interested to use stainless steel because we are creating something which is going to be there for next 100 plus years.
sure.
So it has to be there. But yes, as we have discussed, there is a need to step in by a competent authority, and there is a need to increase the productions. There is a need to have the consumption as well.
Sure, sir.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you.
Hello?
Love to, yeah, just one last question, please. Yes, go ahead.
My name is Ajit, and I want to ask what the innovation we will adopt for the stainless steel, plus the renewable energies are there. What the new innovation we are bringing on the table so that our environmental should not be impacted and our work should be done also.
Well, you could put that, but I think a large part of that question was, of course, addressed in the initial part. But I'll probably summarize it as part of my concluding notes. So, yes, with that, we come to the end of the session today. So, thank you so much, everybody. I just want to talk and maybe taking his question. So, there have been a lot of innovation technology in terms of the rolling stock, the use of different grades of stainless steel, green hydrogen as a traction technology being considered to reduce the cost of traction as well, and a greener form of transportation. And I think as Mr. Anil mentioned, that they're looking at interoperability so that different trains can work on the same tracks, improving safety through automation and automatic operations, etc. So I think both from a digital as well as material technology, they're looking at it. And I think as Harsh also mentioned on HVAC, that the significant cost reduction is happening because use of better materials, including in the HVAC system. So I think innovation is happening. We are not seeing, of course, a quantum change because there is a supply chain issue involved in suddenly transitioning to a new material technology. But I think a 2 to 3% every year is coming in on the base level in terms of what the private sector is bringing innovation. So I think it's a comprehensive thing which is bringing in, making the whole public transport more convenient. So at a macro level, greater public transport means lesser cars on the road and better environment, and within these also the use of more sustainable materials, stainless steel is coming in. So I think that was the whole exercise we looked at it. Um so yes, mobility proportional to prosperity, commuter experience is improving in terms of safety, technology, and interoperability. private sector bringing in innovation, etc., into various aspects of it. The AAA framework, sir, the three batteries which should drive public transport. We need a long-term vision and a policy and a regulatory and a transition so that industry can prepare and avoid any kind of a hostile or a situation where unable to supply to specifications. Would have to go hand in hand, and to that extent, industry has to play a role in terms of driving a collective dialogue. It's a very, it's not a point solution, and as Amol mentioned, we need to have different solutions, including light rail, etc. So I think the industry associations need to have more regular dialogue, and I think I put it on my LinkedIn as well. That when I got the first invite, I think it's a stainless steel summit. Why am I being called here as a transport guy? But I think that's the interesting part, that you've invited the end use here, and they've given their perspectives on use of stainless steel. And I think a better dialogue between users, suppliers, and the government will drive a collective action. I think that's important. I thank all the speakers and also the participants for listening in and their questions, and a lot of information on efficiency, etc. Harsh, some of the global benchmarks and some of the global practices will brought in about use of aluminium the rest of the world over, and stainless steel here. I personally had a couple of questions, but I'll take that after this session is over. But thank you so much.